Hi everybody, this is Josh Placer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to a very quick video of Offworld Trading Company. I'm going to talk a little bit about the philosophy and the design decision of choosing your HQ. This is very important because the HQ you choose at the start of the game is going to make or break yourself on a map. And it's important to understand the rules that go into it, because the AI is not going to give you any allowance on this front. And sometimes you can just lose the game right from the start if you don't choose the right HQ. So, I'm going to load up a quick play here. This won't be a long video, we're just going to talk a little bit about this. Obviously, once it's done loading up. Again, I love the little robot with the World Domination book. And they seem to really like rabbits, too. Alright, here we are. Now, there are three things that you should be keeping track of before you even think about choosing an HQ. The first is what the colony is going to be doing. The second is what are your powers down here. And then third, what are the resources on the map? Remember, the maps are procedurally generated along with their possible resources on each new game. So first, let's look at our colony here. As you can see, it's going to be using food at the moment the most. Or I'm sorry, it's going to be using electronics, then food, then water, then O2. So what that tells me is that in this game, electronics are going to be very expensive, because this is just going to keep going up as the colony goes higher. So, what that essentially means is that if I'm going to be choosing a faction or choosing an HQ, I'm going to have to make my electronics, because if I don't, it's going to cost me more to buy them. Second, we look at what is available down here. Now, the Goon Squad one is always available no matter what, while the rest are randomly chosen. Some of these are more potentially damaging than others. Something like Purchase, Bribe, Acclaim. This could be very powerful. Filthy Pirates. EMP. While something like Circuit Overload isn't as bad, and Mutiny can be useful. Some faction HQs respond better to, or I should say respond worse to, specific black market powers. We'll talk about that in a second. And then lastly, the last thing we'll look at, what is the resource distribution on this map? Now, even though you can see the hotspots here, water, silicon, carbon, stuff like that, there is still the random chance of finding loose supplies of the resources. But this is the general idea. So, if we look here on the map, there is a lot of water. There's 4 hotspots. There's 2 hotspots of carbon, 2 of silicon, 2 aluminum, and 1 of iron. What that tells me is that it's going to be hard to produce steel here. With only 1 supply, it means you're going to have to get it and then corner the market. With 2 sources of silicon and carbon quite close, it's going to be very easy to produce electronics and possibly chemicals. Aluminum, of course, is always a good thing. And that is that in terms of the resources. So with all that said, let's talk about the 4 HQs and what they're best at and what they're worse at. The first one, Snega Development, this is the Expansive HQ. They get additional claims for each HQ upgrade. They need 50% less steel, and their units travel faster. Units meaning the repair drones, as well as construction bots. And the transports, I'm sorry. For the Expansive HQ, they are really good when resources are either in high supply, that means you have like 2 or 3 ticks on a tile, or if there's resources far away. because their transports travel 50% faster. It means you'll get them quicker than someone else. Because they rely less on steel than the other factions, it's good to build extra steel with them, and that way you can try to corner the market on it and force your other ones to buy it out. The only exception would be if you're fighting against other scavengers who make use of carbon instead of steel. Robotics, they do not require food or O2. They will use electronics instead of glass. And the other main use is that their units are powered by electricity instead of fuel. So these three pretty much are not used by the robotics. Oh, I'm sorry, these four, because they don't need water either. But the downside is they rely heavy on electronics in the process. So what that means is they're better on maps where there's less water. So this would be down here. They need the silicon for the electronics, so this could actually work out here. Now, because the faction here, or the colony, requires electronics, so they're going to be using it more than anything else, it means that if I build as robotics, I'm going to have to make use of my electronics, and I could attempt to corner the market on it. Robotics are really good, again, when there are a lot of sources for power, such as geothermic vents, or if there is high silicon, low water. So this could work. It's a possibility. The next is the Scavenger, or Reclamation Inc. Their main advantage, they use carbon instead of steel, but they require more carbon for buildings than the steel equivalent. So, like, as an abstracted example, let's say a building requires 40 steel, they would probably need either, like, I think it's like 65 or 80 carbon to do the same thing. They can also use the black market more frequently. Usually it's a minute cooldown per black market. I think theirs is like 30 seconds or 45. And they get alerts about situations before the other HQ. So, like, stuff like shortages or surplus, solar wind, stuff like that. Reclamation Inc. or Scavenger, they are the best when there is a lot of carbon and water in close supply. Basically, you're going to have to corner the market on carbon in order to produce any buildings. They'll need a lot of water as well, because as a human faction, they're going to rely on life support, so food, O2, and of course fuel for maintaining things. If you have a lot of nasty black market powers, such again as being able to bribe, mutiny, or stuff like magnetic storm or EMP, they can also be really useful, so you can just hammer on a faction or an HQ that you don't like. If there isn't a lot of water on the map, or a lot of carbon, then they're not that good. So, like, down here could possibly be a good place for a scavenger. You got water here, you have carbon, and of course you have silicon. So this could be really good for them, because again, there's not a lot of iron, which means it's going to be a lot harder for them to produce steel. Finally, we have the Scientific HQ. Their special advantage is that all their construction facilities, so the stuff to produce steel, produce electronics, glass, chemicals, etc., they can be built directly on the resource, and they will just use it. Normally, you would have to, like, let's say, build a silicon mine or an elemental core here. It gets sent to your HQ, wherever it may be, and then you build the electronics factory at your HQ, and then it produces it there. So you basically need two claims to make that work. With Scientific, you just need one claim, you build it right on top, bing, bang, boom, you're done. They also get patents 50% faster as well. For the New Meridians or the Scientific, they work the best when you have a lot of low quality resource tiles in close proximity. The reason is that when you build the factory on top of it, they do not get any bonuses due to quality. It will produce as much of that resource or as much of that production, whether it's a low quality tile or a high quality. They're also really good when you have these supplies close to each other, because again, you're going to rely a lot on transports with them, because you need to get those resources back to your HQ. The problem with the scientific HQ is that they are very susceptible to either high fuel costs because of their transports, or to black market powers that specific target them. So magnetic storm will completely devastate the scientific HQ, as well as things that will destroy or knock out buildings because of the fact that their factories are so prized. If you're going to play as a scientific HQ, it's very important to look at getting alternative usages for your transport. So stuff like the water engine or things that are powered by water to cut down on fuel costs. And teleportation is such a huge deal as a scientific HQ. If you don't get it and you're the only scientific HQ on the map, you're going to be in big trouble. If you can get it and shut out the other scientific HQs, you're going to be in a really good place. So to recap quickly, expansive, good when there's high quality resources on the map, and when you can make steel, so you can try and corner the market. Robotics, good when there is a low water, high silicon, as well as high power areas. Reclamation, good when there's a lot of carbon and low iron, and when you have good black market abilities. Scientific, good when you have a lot of low quality tiles in close proximity, and when you're able to get teleportation. So with all that said, looking at this map, if we're going to go expansive, we would basically need to build like right here, if there are resources here. If we want to go scavenger, we would pretty much have to build like right in this general area. Robotics would be a little tricky. Even though, since we don't use glass, we won't need the silicon to produce it, but we would need to make heavy use of it in order to build electronics. We'll need to corner the market and do upgrades. Scientific, it's kind of risky because the iron and the aluminum are so far away from each other. We will probably need to like sort or get set up like right in this area. And if we lose it, like if we have to reach to like far-flung areas, like over here would not be good for us, since we would have to rely heavily on fuel and transport to get these resources back up here. So this would be a really poor spot to settle. Now with all that said, we can now actually start scanning and seeing what we find. So I want to scan in this general direction and see what's up.
High levels of aluminum found.
Okay, so there's aluminum.
Medium levels of silicon found.
Alright, so there's medium level. So there's a lot of high quality stuff here.
High levels of carbon found.
High level carbon, that's good. We can use that. Alright, I'm not seeing water over there. That has me a little nervous.
Medium levels of water found.
Okay, so I've scanned. Now, of course, we can just keep on scanning if we wanted to, but we'll give the AI more of an advantage. So here's what my gut is telling me. We have a really good supply of carbon right here. High supply means we'll get extra resources out of it by mining it. We've got some pretty good powers. Now the downside, again, is that if we're going to make use of electronics, we're going to need the steel over here. We won't need glass all that much if we play robotics. Expansive is tempting. We basically will have to farm like right around this area. But there's a lot of water here, and water will be used for life support. I'm thinking that if we decide to go this way, the Scavenger HQ would be the best. Now, the one risk, though, with only one supply of carbon, if we don't get that, we're done. So I think I want to scan up here and see if there's more. That's silicon. I'm assuming this is more water. I'm trying to find
levels of iron found.
more carbon. See, things are spread out quite a distance. Now this is a whole aluminum patch. And that's more carbon. So let's stop for a second and think. If I found myself here, I would have more carbon, I would have aluminum, and some silicon. Silicon will be able to be used for the electronics, and it can also be used for the glass. The downside is that water is going to be all the way over here, and I'm going to need that for my life support. If I go robotics, I would pretty much need to be founded like probably right around in this area. I can snatch up the iron there. Now the only downside is I have not found any geothermal vents. We would be really close. We won't really need carbon unless we decide to go heavy in chemicals. But we would need a lot of silicon. So you can see we got a 2 here, we got some 1s. Now scientific. I don't think scientific would work here because of how things are spread out. If I would have to go basically down here. I would have to get it from here, rely on this, get that. I would have to ship it. It's still relatively short. It could work. Any more scanning and the AI will probably go down. The one, unless there's carbon in this crater here, which it doesn't look like it is, then this is probably not a good spot. We want high carbon, high water for a scavenger. If we go over here, we'll have high carbon, no water. So scavenger is probably out. If we go expansive, we have a lot of aluminum.
Robotic colony found it.
Alright, so they found a good spot. Lots of silicon. They have the iron right there. Now, if I go scientific, they're going to probably try cornering the market on the iron. I could build electronics here. They won't need glass, but we will need that. Yeah, they got a really good spot. If I want to make use of this, we have water, we have silicon, we have one patch of iron. Iron means we can produce steel, we need less steel. But we do have a lot for resources here. There is high quality. I'm thinking expansive may be the way to go. Put it like right here, in this general area. I snatch this up. Remember, we get quicker transports than anyone else. I can make use of this in order to produce the carbon that we'll need for chemicals. We got tons of silicon, tons of water. So I think we're going to go expansive. I know it took a very long time to decide that. So the final point is where to set up. You want to set up near high quality resources so that way you can just immediately build and you won't need to transport. We are definitely going to be needing to take that. So if I build like right here, I can grab the water, immediately grab this iron. If there's not any more iron, I may need to take a high quality one over here as well. We have plenty of silicon we need for glass and electronics. And if I wanted to, I could take this carbon and try to corner the market on chemicals, which we can then use to boost the yield from our factories and resources. So I think it's going to be expansive. So we're going to wrap this up. I am going to start right here. So we're going to pause so we can now actually look at the map in full. So this was actually a really good place. We have some high quality ticks here and here, high quality carbon, high quality silicon, high quality water. And again, because of our increased speed, we can make use of that. We actually got really lucky that there's 2 supplies of iron right here, which means I will probably take them both, use that to make steel, take a silicon, and go from there. Now, the downside of this map, and what that robotics guy is going to have some trouble with, is that he found it all the way over there. He will probably have to go for these geothermals up here. This will be something to keep in mind if I want to really screw him. Now, what's interesting is this would be pretty much the Scavenger dream up here. Lots of carbon spots, lots and lots of water, and we have geothermal. So if someone founds up there, they will probably go carbon. So I would really want to stick it to them by knocking them out, using probably EMP to get rid of their carbon supplies. So would the scientific be actually good here? If they would have found it down here, maybe. Because they have a wide variety right in this low area, and it's close enough. They would probably have to go a little further for carbon, but that's not a huge deal. I'm kind of surprised the robotics went here when they could have gone like more over in this general area. Because he found a lot of water. So, to wrap it up, my starting concern would be I want steel. So I would take one of these. I would probably corner get this high silicon, which we'll use for electronics and glass. And I may snatch this carbon up as well. Pretty much get all the high ones in close supply. Not so much concern myself with power or life support just yet. But instead, get my production going so I can start cornering the market on these resources. And hopefully put myself in a good place to screw if anyone decides to found up here or over here. But that's going to do it for this play. Thanks so much for tuning into this video. It went a lot longer than I thought, but that's just, again, the thought process you need to think about when finding or founding an HQ. Obviously, if you're playing this multiplayer, you'll have to do this a lot quicker. And again, a lot of this was just me talking out loud about what to do. If you have any questions regarding founding an HQ or playing Offworld Trading Company in general, leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out game-wisdom.com, where I examine the art and science of games. Subscribe on Twitch and Twitter under GWBizer to get the latest updates when content goes live. And lastly, you can find me on Patreon under Game Wisdom, and any donations would be greatly appreciated in order to allow me to keep putting out great content and keep the site ad-free. Thanks again for watching this little how-to video on Offworld Trading Company, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.